I am the co-director of the Nurture Science program at Columbia University Medical Center and the PI on family nurture intervention. Our Nurture Science program is both basic and clinical research translational program from cells to babies. And the family nurture intervention is a novel intervention that came out of my clinical practice, working with a wide variety of mothers and children, fathers, whole families, three-generational, biological children, adopted orphans, and I did a great deal of training of therapists during those years in 2-day practicums. The rationale for bringing it to the NICU was that there are evolutionary conserved regulatory mechanisms that are conditioned by nurturing interactions, and they ensure a positive emotional connection between the mother and the infant. Now, it is my contention that this emotional connection is broken by preterm birth. The mother often is very upset, if not traumatized, depressed. The baby is isolated, and this is a critical blow to adaptive emotional and neurobehavioral development. Having the assumption that the repair does not necessarily happen in the NICU environment, I tried to think of how to bring my general ideas about repair to this NICU, and that was through facilitation by a nurture specialist, former NICU nurses trained to do this. The highest priority, of course, in the NICU is infant survival, but to me the second most important is the emotional connection of the mother and the infant. So the main goal of family nurture intervention was to ensure that the mother and infant emotionally connect before discharge. And although it's very focused on the mother and the infant, it is not without the entire family. And again, we tried to get the 3 generations in, and the father is very important. So we excluded mothers who didn't have a family. So every person in this family nurture intervention has a family. So the objective was to establish a calming cycle, a co-regulation between mother and infant through repeated sessions. And then to educate the mother and the family about the importance of using this throughout development, and to encourage the father and the grandparents to primarily support the mother and infant, and secondarily to engage in the calming sessions. We took infants 26 to 34 weeks postmenstrual age and gave them family nurture intervention throughout their NICU stay. So these facilitated calming sessions occurred as soon as possible while the infant was still confined to the incubator, and then when the infant came out of the incubator. And the idea was reciprocal interaction, not just doing things to the baby, but having the mother and infant act upon each other in a reciprocal and mutually rewarding way through these sensory and emotional calming experiences. Starting with a scent cloth exchange, giving the baby the mother's scent cloth and giving the mother the baby's scent cloth. This turned out to be very meaningful to a lot of mothers. Really riveted their investment in the baby. The first thing we have the mothers do is reach into the isolette and hold the baby in a firm way, because they've been poked and stuck and tubed so much that they often are aversive to light touch, so with firm touch. And then skin-to-skin holding. But I must say, I was pleased that Petra put up our brain activation results in the frontal lobe, but it's important to note that our results in brain activity were not dependent on the amount of kangaroo care, nor on the amount of breast milk received. So we're relatively certain that the results are dependent on emotional connection, which is a little different from many interventions, to have this as the main focus and activity. We asked the mothers to make eye contact and communicate thoughts. Now, some of our babies probably can't really see, but it's still important for the mother to aim at eye contact because it orients her for the speaking to the baby, and we ask the mother to speak in her native language. And we've been able to show mothers that they do not have the same emotional content in a second language as they do in the first, and then they're good with speaking that. Grandmothers too, we've shown them that also. Okay, so then the idea is to give the mother the emotional support in the hospital, and then by having the whole family involved to ensure that it happens at home. And we ask the families to preview the kinds of family circumstances that would interfere with that and think of solutions ahead of time that they might put into place. And it's really remarkable how well they can name their obstacles and think of solutions. The training for these nurture specialists was to shadow nurture specialists, and of course the first ones had to shadow me. Read papers, review and discuss videos of mother-infant sessions, review and discuss outcome data. Our outcome data are so exciting that it usually motivates people. To practice with measures of emotional connection, including looking at videos. We have videos of mother-infant interaction at 36 weeks, 4 months, 12 months, 24 months, 4 years, 5 years, or just getting now to 4 and 5 years. And we have the biphasic emotional connection scale, which we use as a training measure to teach the nurture specialist how to track emotional connectedness. And this is based on the idea of attraction versus avoidance, motivation, sensitivity. And this is the scale, and you score both the mother and the baby at all the different ages. And the attraction is from great attraction to grossly avoidant, and sadly we do see grossly avoidant. From highly motivated to not motivated, and from highly sensitive to cues to grossly insensitive to cues. Now, it's been very exciting. We just are starting a replication study in Children's Hospital of New Jersey, and we're training the nurture specialists there, and there was 99% concordance between our experienced nurture specialist and our trainee on this scale after working with a mother-child pair. Now, this is an experiential learning model, both for the nurture specialist in training and for the family. It can't be taught. Emotional connection cannot be taught. It has to be brought about effectively. The main goal is co-regulation. Now, many people think that the goal of care is self-regulation. My experience as a psychiatrist of 40-some years is that the difference between people who develop well and continue to develop well throughout the lifespan is whether they're able to use co-regulation or not. I believe that when co-regulation runs out, you do not have self-regulation, you have dysregulation. And what you really need is to get these infants who are so disrupted and so stressed to be able to co-regulate with the mother. And that will predict their success throughout life. The secondary method is didactic. Oh, by the way, I said that the experiential for the nurture specialist. When a nurture specialist helps the mother connect with the baby, what do you think it does to the nurture specialist? Anybody? It's an exciting, inspiring, and motivating experience, and slightly addictive, which is good because then it's self-generating for the mother and baby and for the nurture specialist. So the secondary method is didactic, using instructions, videos, and printed materials. Now, I said that we use our results to inspire the trainee, and we have published all these results, but one, the vagal tone, has not yet been published, but all the rest are published as of yesterday. Maternal caregiving behavior at 36 weeks was significantly increased in intervention mothers. EEG power and EEG coherence were altered. EEG power up just in the frontal area and EEG coherence down just in the frontal area, which we think speaks of good future development. The mothers at 4 months had decreased depression and anxiety, very important juncture in life for child development, and also 4 months mood predicts the whole first year. Vagal tone was increased at 4 months. It was increased at term also, but only in girls, okay? And by 4 months, the boys not only had increased vagal tone, but higher than the intervention girls. And at 18 months, increased Bailey scores, decreased attention problems, which is one of the main problems of premature infants on the CBCL. And interestingly, a robust decrease in the risk for autism on MCHAT. And that was generally published results show at least 1 out of 4 premature infants has a positive screen on the MCHAT, and we had 1 out of 10. Now, I was asked to do a cost-benefit analysis, and this is it, okay? Anybody who wants to see it is welcome to see me after, but there isn't time to go into it. But the upshot is that the cost to treat every NICU baby in the United States with family nurture intervention would be $84 million. And then if the baby doesn't need a evaluation because they don't have a positive screen on MCHAT, it would save $253 million. $3 for every dollar spent. So just on evaluation alone, it's a massive saving. That calculator I just showed you on the prior slide predicts billions if you have to treat, okay? Billions in savings. In our country, this is not so helpful because guess what? The NICU doesn't sustain that cost. It's other parts of society. So, hard sell. Okay. But we're very excited to have this very good result, all these good results, and to have them all published the day before this conference. Training opportunities I was asked to comment would be organization-sponsored 2-day workshops where we go through what I already told you we do for our nurture specialists that we're training. And, you know, I have to say it's been very easy to train NICU nurses. We've now also trained a social worker. And from my experience training other professionals in my prior work with not premature infants or with older premature infants, I've trained physical and occupational therapists, social workers, psychologists, psychiatrists, nurses, and speech therapists. Okay? And I have to put in a plug for speech therapists. They picked it up like this. Any speech therapists here? Oh, too bad. Okay, so what are we up to besides this? We're doing a replication study starting last week, and this is very good because it's cementing our training program to train another NICU. And obviously, if you want to disseminate any kind of program and have sustainability, which is a big issue of this conference, how do you get sustainability? You have to replicate. Then you have to do an effectiveness trial, which we're planning to do in conjunction with Bruce McEwen at Rockefeller University. We'll be doing it at Roosevelt Hospital. And day after tomorrow, we're starting a new model, a post-NICU model, with 2.5 to 4-year-olds who weren't treated in the NICU, who have problems now, and we're going to do family nurture intervention and track what happens to those children. We also have a great opportunity to do the model that I started with for autism and other developmental disorders, which is a mothering center model where you treat many pairs at once, or if you can get the rest of the family in, 3 generations, father, grandmother, grandfather, in a mothering center model in a community health center that's already using my model. And we hope to test that there, and if they can show efficacy there, it will just spread. They will spread it to other community centers, of which there is a large network, thank goodness, in the United States. And this one in particular does birth to death care. So that would be just fantastic if we could get in there. And by the way, uncharacteristically for the U.S., mental health services at that community center are free. Ever hear of that in the U.S.? Okay, so our first goal is to make family nurture intervention part of standard care. And we already have lactation specialists in our NICUs, so they would be prime candidates for being trained, but NICU nurses in general. And so they would become nurture specialists, what we call nurture specialists. And we feel that this would be very practicable to do because it can be done by all the nurses. And we think that this would be exciting for the nurses because, as I said, when you affect this connection between a mother and a child, it erases burnout, stress, unhappiness. It's so exciting and rewarding. In fact, when we used to do our mothering center model of treating multiple families at once with groups of therapists working together, when someone had a connection, the whole room would feel it, and everybody would cry. It was just amazing. It's so deeply moving and wonderful. Okay, so our second goal is to make a viable alternative for late intervention for babies who are in need at a time when they start to identify need. In our country, that's around 3, when the parents sort of get the idea that things aren't getting better and all the symptoms are showing up in school or in some program. And the third goal is to integrate our animal models and cell culture research with our NICU work. We are working on oxytocin mechanisms in cell culture, and oxytocin is secret in tissue, 2 nurture hormones, highly expressed in milk and more so in colostrum, which are, we think, very developmentally important and elicited by nurture. Our animal models, some of them are of reunion, not just separation, but we're studying the physiology of reunion. And I don't have on my list, we're studying the physiology of the coming cycle. And this is part of our wonderful group. We have a very large group of highly dedicated people. And it's been very rewarding, very exciting, and every day fun. Thank you.